Hey guys, this is Grooms. Got a guest here again today, the wonderful Air John Phelps. We want to get into a couple things here, especially dealing with Donald Trump. And let's just get to it. How you doing, Phelps?
Good to hear you again, Tommy, and nice to be with your listeners too.
It's good to have you. Let's tell these Christians and others about Mr. Trump and why he's not the answer.
Well, first of all, who is Donald Trump? I mean, who is he? He's a multi-billionaire, which tells you that he's in with the Roman hierarchy, because you cannot be a billionaire in this country and not be in some way or some manner connected to the white power structure that is run by the Pope through his American Roman hierarchy and overseen by the Jesuits of this country. Furthermore, he's went bankrupt a couple times, and he now has got his fortune back. And see, that doesn't happen unless you have credit or you have ins with the big bankers in New York City, which he does. So Donald Trump is connected with the big bankers of New York City, the big bankers that are Knights of Malta, and other knights that are loyal to the Archbishop of New York City. Because New York City is run by the Archbishop of New York City, Timothy Cardinal Dolan. He's the Archbishop of the political capital of the world. He controls the banks, he controls the politics, he controls the political parties, he controls the mafia, he controls everything in New York City. Just like the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. controls everything in D.C. And you have a Jesuit university in New York called Fordham, and you have a Jesuit university in Washington, D.C. called Georgetown. And between these two Jesuit institutions, overseeing the Archbishop of each city, they run everything. You got a Federal Reserve Bank in Richmond, which is not far from Washington, D.C. You got a Federal Reserve Bank in New York. And the Archbishop controls everything in that Federal Reserve Bank, and including all the gold in it. So Trump is part of that. Furthermore, as we mentioned previously, he idolizes Louis XIV.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how his 66th floor was modeled. I have breakup on your end, it's not my end, so I just want you to know that. On the 66th floor of his skyscraper in New York City, and it was all modeled after Louis XIV's Versailles. $100 million worth. So Donald Trump is a man with connections. He's a man of power. He is in with all the high knights. He is a high-level 33rd degree Freemason. He is an apostate Presbyterian. Donald Trump, I believe, is being paid probably no less than $100 million to give it the appearance that he's having a campaign for presidency. And I maintain the reason he's doing this is to ensure a Hillary Clinton victory. I'm convinced he will be given the nomination at the Republican convention, and that will make a shoe-in for Hillary. In the meantime, from what you say, I understand the outlaw motorcycle gangs, the big dope pushers for the CIA, the mafia, have united to defend Donald Trump wherever he speaks.
That's correct.
Well, this is just another evidence of his connections and his power as it relates to the mafia, CIA, FBI, all the motorcycle gangs, the dope trade that the CIA runs, etc., etc. So he's part of this. So he is no way a conservative. He's a banking lover, fractional reserve banking lover, pretended conservative when in fact he's most assuredly a cartel capitalist that works in conjunction with the socialists. Cartel capitalism always works in conjunction with socialism, socialist communism or socialist fascism. You do not have these systems imposed upon a people when you do not have monopolistic cartel capitalism as we have here in this country. So, as far as I see, Donald Trump is just another one of their minions, like Ted Cruz, like Hillary Clinton, and so on. And whoever they put in the Andrew White House, Jesuit Andrew White House, in the next several months will be the choice of the high Jesuits here. As you know, there is no legitimate voting on a federal level for the president or for really a senator. And so it's all voter fraud, and they control it all, and they put in who they want. So yeah, that's Donald Trump. And Hillary Clinton, if she's put in, I'm sure Bill will be just as much president as he was before. So
yeah, he'll be our first lady vice president. But would you address the whole Louis XIV and the French Huguenots and what happened there, and why would Trump even model himself after such a wicked sinner?
Well, in reviewing the history of the Huguenots, they were the French Protestant Calvinists.
Mm-hmm.
These Huguenots became very prosperous in business. They were shippers, they were manufacturers. They were the epic population of France. And when we have the revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685, that is when Jesuit Pierre Lachaise convinced Louis XIV to withdraw the religious liberty of the Huguenots with the revocation of this Edict of Nantes. The Edict of Nantes was given in 1610 by the king at the time, the king of France. What was he? Louis XIV, I believe. Henry IV. And this guaranteed religious liberty to the French Protestants. Well, 75 years later, in 1685, we have the revocation of this edict and persecution of the French Huguenots. 500,000 of them will be killed. 500,000 will be driven out of the country. And France will be the poorer for it, as what the Jesuits did through Louis XIV. Louis XIV was the one who built the Castle of Versailles in Paris. The one who oversaw the building of it, his name was Colbert. Colbert was a very powerful French Knight of Malta. So the Knights of Malta built Versailles with the benefit of Louis XIV, who was also a knight. He was a protector of them. So Donald Trump is in with that kind of ilk. And so I maintain that if they put him in or Hillary in, they're going to get what they want. They control both horses of the race.
Yeah, it seems like they'll get the race war too. Trump almost seems like he's there for the race war. The fury that's coming from both sides, it's at an all-time level, wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. They have trumped up these charges of racist and bigot against Trump because he simply wants to stop the alien invasion of the Hispanics into the country, which should have been done 30 years ago with Reagan. He's right. We either have a country or we don't. I guarantee you, if you go into Mexico without a visa, you're going to jail.
That's right.
And so there's no other country that allows this massive invasion of people coming in illegally. But the Jesuits want this because this is part of their North American Union. They have to bring in as many Hispanic, Roman Catholic, alien invaders that hate white people as possible, bringing their culture, their language, their hatred for the gringo, and they bring it all up in here to further weaken the white people of North America, and particularly the white Protestants and the Baptists. That's what the game really is.
Seems just like Germany, doesn't it? It seems like they're trying to drive us right into right-wing fascism.
Of course. And if it wasn't for the Bible and if it wasn't for the Word of God, I would be a fascist. Of course I would. Any white man in his right mind who doesn't believe the Bible would be a fascist. This is a struggle for our very existence. We are going to be destroyed in the 21st century. By 2050, America will not be a white nation. And when there's no white people that are in a majority, particularly Protestants and Baptists, you're going to have savagery, as you have in every other Hispanic nation, as you have in every other black nation in Africa. You have savagery. You have savagery in Zimbabwe right now because they killed off all the white people. And Zimbabwe was a beautiful country when whites ruled it. They had food to eat. They had the best food in Africa. But now, because those evil, wicked white people who believed in apartheid, well, now we got to kill them all. So we bring in Robert Mugabe, a Jesuit-trained black savage military dictator, and he facilitates the murder of tens of thousands of white people who never did anything wrong except for being white. Okay? This is called the genocide in Zimbabwe right now. White genocide. We have the same white genocide going on in South Africa right now. With that savage Zulu president of South Africa, Zuma, and his control of the savage African National Congress, they're killing the white Boers by the tens of thousands. And other white people too. They're killing all the farmers out of South Africa. And what's going to happen when that takes place? Why, all the blacks are going to starve to death. And many of those blacks are black Protestant Christians. So they're killing off the white Protestant Christians in South Africa so they can starve to death the black Protestant Christians. You see?
Yeah.
But they hide behind the whole race card because they don't want you to see the real issues here. So we have white genocide, white Protestant genocide in South Africa. We have white Protestant genocide in Rhodesia. That's what it really is. It's not Zimbabwe, it's Rhodesia.
Right.
It's built into a beautiful nation under the name of Rhodesia.
And it wasn't stolen from the Zulus either.
It wasn't stolen from the Zulus. I cover it on my website. The Boers purchased all land that they had from the Zulus.
That's right.
And the Zulus drew first blood. They killed the leader of the Boers. So the Boers went to war with them, killed, 10 or 15,000 of them on, Red River, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So then the Zulus hired the Boers to fight against their enemies. And the Boers, being great white Protestant soldiers, defeated the enemies of the Zulus. And so the Zulus gave them land. They purchased everything, from the Orange Free State to the Transvaal. All of it was purchased from the Zulus. And by the way, there would be no white people in South Africa or in Rhodesia had not the Roman Catholic Church persecuted us and driven us out of Europe. So all these blacks that are hot at the whites say, you need to get hot at the Roman Catholic Church, because they're the ones that are the ones responsible for driving the whites into Africa. But oh no, you won't hear any blacks going after the Roman Catholic Church, except maybe the late Khalid Muhammad. But none of the other ones will touch them because they're all Tobies for the Pope.
It's interesting, though, that ISIS says that their main goal is to destroy the Vatican. I find that interesting.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's open but false policy.
Yeah.
If ISIS really wanted to destroy the Vatican, they would cease to exist. Now, as I said before, the leaders of ISIS all have bank accounts in Switzerland with UBS set up by the CIA. That is a fact. The Catholics in action, the CIA. So ISIS is a creation of the CIA.
That's right.
And so the Vatican controlling the CIA wants to kill Christians. They want to kill non-Roman Catholic Christians. They want to kill Coptic Christians. They want to kill them. They want to slaughter them. But they're using what appears to be an open Muslim faction to do it. ISIS So, and Isis, of course, is named after the goddess Isis, whose name in Romanism is the Virgin Mary.
Yep.
So, that's what's really happened.
Yeah, the mystery schools, yeah.
And like I said, here in North America, we have the continual destruction of the white-raced peoples, particularly Protestants and Baptists. They're destroying the historic white Anglo-Saxon Protestant and Baptist middle class. The only reason why you have a black middle class or a Hispanic middle class or a Catholic middle class is because of the white Roman, white Protestant and Baptist middle class that created the government and created the economic system that we once had that produced true wealth and a middle class.
You know what? I'm glad you brought this up. I see a lot of these black people who join Islam, and they don't know the true history of Islam. It ain't like James Cook and these men just got off a ship and went and just rounded up slaves. It was the black Muslims who rounded up these slaves and sold them into captivity.
Well, the vast majority of blacks in America hate white people. Okay? Mm-hmm. I'm 62 years old. I know what I'm talking about. I lived here my whole life. There is no black community I can go in and be welcomed and say, "Hi, how you doing? Well, come to my restaurants." They hate us. And so what they do is they continue to stoke this hate with this horrible lying history that all white men ever did was go to roots. We're going to have roots here with that racist, what's her name? That woman that became a multi-millionaire from white people watching her program. What's her name? You know her name.
Oh, Oprah?
Oprah. That racist. That bigot. So she becomes a multi-millionaire because of all these white people, white women watching her program, and then she plays a part in that racist program called Roots with that other racist black man in there. His name is, what's his name?
Denzel?
No, the other guy.
Yeah.
That filthy mouth black actor.
Morgan Freeman.
What's his name?
Was it Morgan Freeman?
No, not Freeman. It's the other guy.
It's the other one.
He was with Mel Gibson in one of his movies.
Danny Glover. Yeah.
Danny Glover. Every other word is MF, 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 MF.
They're remaking that movie.
Glover is a racist. He hates white people.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get all these black racists in this movie, Roots, to portray what they think is true history. And it's not true history.
They're remaking it. It's supposed to be airing this Sunday on the History Channel, the new version.
So all the blacks can be given another shot of hatred for the white man. Just like that other movie, Django, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to teach more hatred for the white man. And they'll get that Italian Roman Catholic to play the leading part of that vicious white man. What's his name? Oh, you know his name.
Yeah.
He's in many movies.
Yeah, Leonardo.
Leonardo DiCaprio. Get that American Roman Catholic there so we can play that part there. So the Catholics can stoke all the black on white hatred here in America and just keep stoking it and stoking it and stoking it, while the poor blacks are too dumb to understand that they were very well off here. They weren't beaten, and they weren't raped generally. That's all lies. Yep. All the rape was going on in the North. It wasn't going on in the South, where there was 7% of the white men down there were slave owners.
That's it. That's right.
But the white Southerners were not slave owners, and then they got to portray the Confederate flag as nothing but a racist, hate the black man flag, when the Confederate flag was a flag that denoted states' rights and sovereignty and wanting to separate from this Yankee North that wanted to centralize power everywhere. The Confederate flag is a beautiful flag, but the Jesuits with their Ku Klux Klan will have the Ku Klux Klan take that flag and fly it everywhere like it's some sort of anti-black, hatefully racist flag. And so then all the blacks fall for that nonsense because they're too lazy, that's right, I said lazy, to do their own research and investigation. They just rather watch the TV and be told what to believe. Just like the majority of white people.
That's right.
And going on, I'm on a roll here, so I might as well finish it.
I love
What else here? So we have that, we have... And any black man who comes out and says, wait a second, the South, there were 60 to 100,000 blacks that were on the side of the Confederacy. Don't make it all white. If a black man comes out and says that, why, he's an Oreo cookie. He's black on the white side, not white, black on the outside, white on the inside. He's nothing but an Uncle Tom. And see, if you don't hate white people, you're an Uncle Tom. And that's part of the stoking of the hatred that's necessary to incite a race war.
let me ask you
And
this.
it's going to come just as sure as it's coming, because the preachers in this country have not exposed this plot of the Jesuit order controlling the black leaders and the white leaders through Freemasonry.
Now, how many
controlling the black nation of Islam with the white Ku Klux Klan, with that white devil Billy Graham, and all these other whoremasters working for the Pope, facilitating a race war. And there's only one thing worse than a race war. That's called a holy war. Only because it's killing of men, women, children, indiscriminately, wipe them out. And that's a holy war and a race war. If you want to read about race war, just go read about the Mau Mau uprising in Africa in 1950 in Kenya. Read about it. The average person knows nothing of the Mau Mau uprising in 1950. There was a movie called Mau Mau, I believe, and Sidney Poitier played the leading Mau Mau in it. People need to watch that movie. It was made in the 1970s or 60s. Watch it. Of course, Sidney Poitier is a Knight of the Equestrian Order and most fanatical Roman Catholic. So he's the perfect guy to create sympathy for the Mau Mau. So it's the continual brainwash of the blacks to hate the whites, so that the whites are desperate, and so they can be driven to right-wing fascism. And I'll tell you this. There's never been a time in history where whites and blacks have gone to war and the blacks have won. Never. And it's not going to happen here. They're cutting their own throats if they start a race war. And that's exactly what the black leaders want, because they're all working for the Masonic Lodge and the Pope of Rome. They want a race war. Louis Farrakhan has admitted this to an individual I know. He says his purpose is to incite a civil war. That's why he calls white people white bastards. That's why he incites blacks to hate white people and calling for genocide. So it's going to continue, and the white people are going to be more and more desperate. And so when the guy comes along on the white horse, they'll all follow him. And then, because of these last 80 years of black on white crime, vengeance is going to unfold in the most bloody, horrible way possible. All these white men that have had their mothers raped, or their daughters raped, or their sisters raped, or killed, or their sons killed, all that anger is going to come boiling to the top, and it's going to be an absolute decimation. That's what's coming. And I hope it doesn't. One of my purposes of my ministry is to prevent this from happening. And that's why I call for racial separation into nationhood. That's why white people need their own country that are Protestant and Baptist. That's why I want to start my own country somewhere here in North America, beginning in Pennsylvania with some county. Doesn't have to be Lebanon. It can be some other county. But we need our own nation, because there's going to be a race war. The blacks, they have their own county in Philadelphia. It's called Chester County. It's entirely black for the most part. And that's good. They need their own county. We need to racially separate, because whenever you forcefully miscegenate, God sends a race war. He sends a race war, destruction of the culture, poverty, because he created the races to be sustained and to keep mankind separate. And he's against race mixing. He's against miscegenation. He created the races to keep mankind separate.
Amen.
Huh? Protestants, historic Protestants, have always practiced racial separation. It's the Roman Catholics who all miscegenated. Roman Catholic Brazil miscegenated. Roman Catholic South America miscegenated. But not in the historic northern white Protestant North America until the last 70 years. Mm-hmm. When we've been under forced miscegenation, forced race mixing, forced integration that has wrecked the military, it's wrecked our culture, it's wrecked our school system. You can't possibly go to school and want to learn anything if you got to be considered who's going to beat my butt after class. Some bad black dude's going to beat me up. How can you possibly concentrate and learn anything? So that's what we have. All throughout this entire country.
I had a thought. I got to ask you this. You mentioned something. I want to address this. You would know the answer to this. How many blacks helped dig the trenches in Atlanta during the Civil War?
Most of them, because
wasn't it 60,000?
You talk to a typical black down in Atlanta. Oh, they built the trenches because they had to.
No, they were free.
These blacks in Atlanta knew that the Yankee banditti, which for many of them were Irish Catholics, were taking their women and their little girls and gang raping them. Mm-hmm. And so these black men in Atlanta said, we don't want that happening to our women. And they dug the trenches hard. And then they also took their little girls and their wives into the swamps and wanted to protect them and to hide them there from their Yankee rapists. So no, that's all nonsense. And if you watch Gone with the Wind, you see the blacks down there. They say, we had enough of these Yankees. You're right. It was one great big rapine